knowing your spouse's love language, that for one, that's the first step.
Yes.
But the hardest step is then implementing it, right? And then speaking it.
Why is that?
Welcome to this edition of the Couplepreneur Life podcast. We're so glad that you're here. In today's podcast, we are going to be talking about 3 secrets to better communication for couplepreneurs. Right?
Extremely important to your success.
Yes.
Whether it's success in the business and success in the relationship.
Absolutely.
The old daggone communication.
It gets us every time. Do you ever feel like you're really arguing more than not? Well, we get it, right? Very common for couplepreneurs. But today we're going to talk about 3 secrets, our 3 secrets on better communication.
That's right. Okay. So we get into it. Well, a big thing with communicating, in the couplepreneurship is we seem to have these meetings or these communication sessions, like 30 seconds at a time.
Right.
Like in between stuff as we're passing through.
In the hallway while one of you is carrying a baby on a hip, another one might have a basket of laundry or whatever, and you're passing each other like ships in the night and trying to have these meetings, quote unquote, right? Meetings about important decisions that need to be made, right?
Or even, if you're working in the office together, where, like in our office, we're right next to each other. I mean, we've always, for years, been in the same spot. But even though we're in the same spot, we're doing different things in the same spot.
Right.
And then when we do speak, we're just kind of lobbing these communication bombs at one another.
Right.
And it just seems to,
it's not effective.
Right, they just kind of blow up instead of just, aren't effective.
We used to do that a lot.
And because there's so much going on, the reality of our lives, even just in regular lives, even just in regular marriages, there's so much going on.
Right.
And then whether, if you're working, even for those who work in a regular job, quote unquote, there's so much going on. We as couplepreneurs, we got both happening at the same time.
At the same time.
Right. And so things,
And it's not just double.
Right.
It doesn't just because you added this other thing, have a couplepreneurship, you've got a business together, it just doubles it. It like 100-folds it, right? Just because of all the things that go into being a couplepreneur.
Right. So there's, so communication is key, and you know that.
You know that.
This is all over. I mean, there's communication gurus and business gurus, or marriage gurus. It's all it's communication.
Right.
So almost so much, it's like the word you say communication. It's like, oh, okay,
we know that. We don't do it, but we know that it's important, right?
So here, let's go. These are things that we've been married 30 years, almost 30 years, been in business together 24/7, almost 29 of those 30 years, 28 and a half years. So we've had years, we have miles on us.
We do.
Okay, and so even though we knew the communication thing, we've heard all the stuff and all that kind of stuff, we just don't. But these are things, we got 3 things that we look at that really are simple things to kind of do. To make, again, to make communication better for couplepreneurs.
Yes, and there's tons that goes into communication, but just for the sake of this podcast, we're going to cover 3 things that we believe are really important. The first being unselfishly listen first. Boy, that's hard.
Repeat that again. Unselfishly listen first.
What is it that people say? God gave us 1 mouth and 2 ears. We're supposed to listen twice as much as we speak, right?
Now, if you're alpha, which a lot of couplepreneurs are, both are alpha a lot of times.
Right.
We tend to, alphas tend to speak more than listen. Not speaking from experience.
I was going to say, are we speaking of anyone in particular?
But that idea, yes, of listening first. And then what kind of ears do we listen with? Not just, because you can listen, like I hear some kind of sound coming from your mouth, wah, 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 right, yeah. From old Charlie Brown. Remember Charlie Brown cartoons or whatever, where the teacher, wah, 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 wah. That's listening, if that's what you're hearing.
That's actually hearing.
That's hearing.
That's hearing.
But that's not listening.
That's not listening. Right.
So how do we need to listen? Well, first of all, we've discovered, through the landmines that I've stepped on, okay, to listen with love. Okay, to listen with love. Not that I'm being attacked,
right,
or that you're trying to get one over on me.
What's the heart of the issue, really, is what you're saying. What's the heart of what your spouse is trying to say? Again, you guys got married for a reason. You loved each other, like really loved each other, and made the decision that you're going to spend the rest of your lives together, right? You stood up in front of a pastor, a priest, whatever it might be, and you committed that you're going to, till death do us part, love each other till death do us part. So there was a point in time in your lives where you loved listening to each other and talking and communicating, right? There was a point in time in your life that you actually did that.
So it's listening with those ears again. You know, that's part of our, you know, one of our pillars of recapturing the magic. We talk about this listening part, like when we were boyfriend and girlfriend.
Right.
So it's really listening with those kinds of ears, like when you were boyfriend and girlfriend. You know, guys, when you were dating your wife, you know, when she spoke, when she wasn't your wife then, or wasn't your business partner then, probably not, but was your girlfriend, you would, you know, when she spoke, you would listen to everything she had to say. I mean, you just kind of were on the edge of your seat listening to every word. You wanted to take things in. You wanted to know. All right, we need to listen with those kinds of ears again.
And with the heart. And I kind of lost my train of thought on what I was going to say. But it's the heart of the issue. So again, you guys love each other. Death do us part, all the things. So you have to listen, or when your spouse is speaking, you have to at least not take for granted. What's a better word of saying? You have to just assume that the heart that where they're coming at from the heart issue is a place of positive as opposed to negative. But it's so easy to think if they say something that might be maybe a little critical or whatever, that you immediately get defensive because you're like, well, you're all up in my face about whatever. What's the heart of the issue? What are they really trying to say? Get past maybe how they delivered it, because maybe they didn't deliver it great, right?
Right.
That's a real good possibility. If things are, you know, so many things are going on, you've got the kids and the business and phones are ringing and text messages coming in and all the things, maybe they snap back, but it wasn't necessarily at you, right? More than likely not. So listen to what the heart of what they're trying to say is.
Right on, right on. You know,
so it's listening with love.
Right, listening with love. Okay, so it's very important to listen with love. It's also very important to realize that they're not your employee, or they're not an employee, or your employee, however you want to look at it.
Right.
Okay, so it's not the same. That's kind of go back listening with the right heart, but then listening with heart again. I'm in love with this person. You know, so it's again, I want to. And part of that love is respect,
right?
You know,
and you aren't employees, one or the other, right? I'm not your employee, you're not my employee. Sometimes that's hard because you, again, as couplepreneurs, you're in business together. So there are going to be times where, if you define the roles correctly, there's going to be times where, you know, one person is the decision maker in a certain aspect of the business, or there'll be marketing or hiring or you know, finances or whatever. You can't have two generals. I know we had a podcast recently, our guest said that. You can't have two generals. There can only be one general. So, but there may be areas in the business where one person is in charge of the final decision than the other one, right?
Yep.
So those roles have to be respected, in that you have to make sure that if that person's the one that's in charge, then they get the final say so.
Right. But the bottom line is, you know, both listening with love and then realizing they're not an employee, and that leads to respect. You know, these are good things to do with just communication with anybody. Okay. But the thing we're trying to, it's that thing. It's like when you walk into a room and you may arrive separately. The thing is, you know, that's my wife, that's my girlfriend. I'm with her, and she's with me. That thing, it's the same way you want to listen.
Right.
It's that thing. Okay.
So again, with the employee, not treating each other like an employee and kind of barking out orders or whatever, that just doesn't fly.
Right.
And again, it's difficult again because you are in business together, so there are some business aspects, but definitely don't encourage you to step on those landmines.
That's right. So unselfishly listen first.
Yes.
Listen first. Next.
Yes.
Understand their love language.
Guys, if you have listened at all to our podcast, we know Couplepreneur Life podcast is fairly new, but if you've listened to any of them, you probably have heard in almost every one the 5 love languages. Gary Chapman's book, The 5 Love Languages, is one of the most powerful books and tools that you can institute in your marriage that will change your marriage. It will absolutely change your marriage. And we can't, and it's so simple, right? The concept of the five love languages is really, really simple. But knowing your spouse's love language, that for one, that's the first step.
Yes.
But the hardest step is then implementing it, right? And then speaking it.
Why is that?
Why is that? Why would
well, because
you're leading me?
Well, because a lot of times what your spouse's love language is opposite of what yours is.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So it's not a natural thing.
It doesn't come natural.
Thus, reason why we have a lot of friction.
Correct. Yes. And we speak about this, that Richard's primary love language is words of affirmation, where that's my least. That's I could care less. I absolutely could not care any less if he gives me words of affirmation. Doesn't mean, not that it doesn't mean anything. Though it's pretty close to.
I like, all the times I say that you're beautiful, or that I'm just amazed how smart you are with, the technology stuff that you do for our businesses and all that, and I think you appreciate that, but it's like it doesn't move you.
It doesn't
like,
speak love to me.
Like me getting the laundry done,
right?
Helping out because you're busy too, or taking out the trash,
right? Doing my top love language is acts of service. So when Richard does acts of service for me, typically without me having to ask, that speaks volumes. Speaks absolute volumes to me. Where then the opposite is true for Richard. His lowest love language is acts of service. But acts of service, is, like I said, is mine. And so I naturally give acts of service. So doing little things for him, folding underwear, or, making a cake, or his favorite cookies, snickerdoodles, making snickerdoodles or whatever. That just...
She makes the best.
I do make really good snickerdoodles. To me, that speaks love. But for him, he appreciates it, but that doesn't speak love to him, where words of affirmation do. So when I speak words of affirmation to Richard, to say you're a good man, a good father, a good husband, really like how you handled that business meeting, or that difficult employee, or whatever it might be, that when I speak those words to him, boy, he feels power, and he feels love from me, that I'm speaking the language that best speaks love to him.
So even when, and how that works if you need to speak with me on something that's difficult, that may ruffle my feathers, so to speak, a little bit, you come at me speak to me at my love language by first coming at me with a positive of how I handle the situation well.
I'll find a positive.
Right.
Yes.
And then I notice this, and then you'll bring in something, so it makes it easier for me to hear what you're trying to say.
Yes. And guys, okay, we've been, like we said, we've been married almost 30 years. This did not come naturally. This did not happen in the beginning by any stretch of the imagination. This took years. We've shared before the difficulties that we had at year 3 of our marriage, and then from that we got the five love languages book, went through all that. And what wasn't also magic, that as soon as we read it, we're like, oh, this is genius, and now we just do this perfectly. No. It took some time, again, because if it's not your love language, it doesn't come natural. You have to make an intentional decision that you are going to speak in the love language that best speaks love to your spouse. Again, for me, words of affirmation, they would just get caught in my throat, because I don't give attaboys or compliments easily. I just don't. For whatever reason, I'm not wired that way. So I had to make a conscious decision in my brain. Okay, say these words. Say to him, you're a good man, you're a good father, you did great at this meeting, or whatever. I have to intentionally do it. And then after a while, it's natural now. It's natural for me to do it. It flows more easily. But in the beginning, boy, it was a difficult thing to do. And I think the same would be true for you for acts of service. That it's not something that just comes natural, because you don't see the tasks that need to get done. Because it's just not wired in you.
So I had to focus on that intentionally. Be aware, to make myself aware. What can I do for Laura? What can I do for her to make her life, to bless her in some way, or to make her life easier, within the business and within our home.
Or to speak love.
Right. Which is ultimately, that's what I want to do.
Right.
Where I'm thinking, if I'm telling you, sweetheart, you sure are beautiful. I'm lucky to have you. you know, and you're so smart. That just, you know, that's about what I get. It's like, okay, but did you take out the trash? Right. Did you pick up the kids? Did you pick
right. Kids? What?
Okay. We have kids? You know, and so the 5 love languages by
Gary Chapman.
Gary Chapman. It is. I wish I would have written that. It's a type of. If you haven't read it, you need to read it.
Yes.
It's not a thing. Well,
Pause
okay.
this podcast right now. Go to Amazon.
Yes. You know, and we don't know Gary Chapman. We don't know.
We do not.
I just say, you know, there's just someone who's given the equation. You know, whoever came up with the equation 2 + 2 = 4. 2 + 2 will never come up with anything else. Okay, it is the equation. That's kind of like how the 5 love languages are.
Yes.
Okay, you can read. There's all kinds of stuff. You know.
Which there's some great stuff out there.
But this is right to the point.
And this is the basis.
Right, and it works.
It is the basics for good communication in a marriage. It truly is. Right. And even if you don't want to get the book, I mean, there's audiobook, there's Kindle, there's all the things. Read it together or get 2 separate ones, you know, highlight different areas. And then on date night that you're having every week, or date day or whatever your time is, then, you know, compare notes. But there is a free quiz out on his website. I'm assuming it's 5lovelanguages.com, where you can take the quiz pretty easily to determine what your love language is. And that's a fun thing to do on date night as well. Right. So, yeah, I know we push the 5 love languages a lot, only because it made such a difference in our marriage.
And we've spoken to so many people who've read the book, and it's made a difference in theirs.
Right.
Because it gets down to the heart of the matter, the meat of the bone, you know, of communication.
Correct.
Okay, and you got to understand, you know, your spouse's, you know,
primary love language.
Exactly.
You do.
Okay.
Okay.
Or you're speaking another language.
Right. Might as well be speaking Portuguese or something, right? Or
exactly.
Mars. There's also a book called Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. It's true. We're wired differently. So anyway, all right.
Okay.
The last thing we want to bring up in communication.
In communication, there's so many things you can bring up with communication, but this one's really worked for us.
Can I say one thing before we do that? I want to offer our free ebook or guide. I think it's a guide, right? 5 ways to spice up your date night. So out on our website. If you go out to our website,
depends on what comes after the or the, whether it's the or the.
cplife.com. If you go out there, you can get it sent right to your email. So just go out there, put in your name, your email address, and we'll be happy to send it to you. So
help you spice up your date night.
Spice up your date night.
There we go, baby. All right. So so there's so many things, you know, that help with communication, but we just want to, you know, part of this is to simplify these things. You know, first get into it, right? And so, you know, learning to listen first, you know, that was important to us. The 5 love language definitely was very important to us. And then this little thing that we kind of, and this can be difficult, but it's a biggie. Okay, is to ask yourself, does it really matter?
Does it really matter? Whatever you're getting all uptight about or nitpicking about, does it matter? Does it really matter? You really do need to ask yourself that, because we tend to get into a rhythm or habits or whatever that everything that they say, you know, your spouse says, you challenge them on or whatever. Doesn't matter. And I know we had a video that went viral out on Instagram and TikTok that was that very thing, right? Where in the video that we kind of played out a thing where Richard is telling a story and he gets some parts of the story wrong. Again, we acted this out, right? It was for Instagram, and he would say one thing, and I would be behind, you know, over his shoulder, correcting him on one little thing that didn't matter. It literally didn't matter, and then I would correct him on something else. So you have to ask yourself on whatever the thing that we're communicating badly about, or I'm thinking that he's saying something or whatever. You have to ask, does it matter? Does it matter in this scheme of things? You guys have so much going on as couplepreneurs with the business and the kids and all the things to nitpick each other. Doesn't matter.
In a sense, it's picking your battles, and we kind of fall into it being, you know, couplepreneurs, which, you know, this one part of the word is taken from entrepreneurs. You're in business, right? So part of being in business is looking at everything, saying, you know, does this matter? Why is this happening? You know, we are looking at everything. We are kind of nitpicking,
right,
for that, to use that phrase. All right, so we're kind of accustomed to that because that's what we need to do in the business to make sure that everything is running smoothly and we're not missing anything. However, in our relationship, all right, that does not necessarily, help to propel our relationship forward.
Right.
All right. It kind of can put the brakes on things when we're constantly looking at our spouse and making a judgment on everything about them, the way they just spoke to us, or the way they put the dishes up, or the way they handled this, or whatever it is.
Right. Yes. And I would say too, going back a little bit to the 5 love languages, since mine is acts of service, Richard would fold the towels. That was one thing he got into, where he would do the laundry and fold the towels. Well, he folded the towels wrong. Wrong. I'm saying in air quotes, right? Because to me, there's a specific way to fold a towel, right? So he would fold them wrong, and so I would actually go behind him and then refold them the right way, my right way, which is so dumb. And I finally had to ask myself, does this really matter? Does it really matter? And the answer is, of course not. Why get so upset about something so little when in the scheme of things, it's not even a blip. It doesn't matter. So ask yourself, does it really matter?
Does it really matter?
And the answer is probably no, it does not.
Right.
It doesn't matter. So.
Which goes a long way in making your communication better.
Yes, and which is what it's all about, right?
Sometimes communicating less.
Less is more. Less is definitely more sometimes when it comes to those. So, anything else about communication, or?
Oh, there's a lot of things around communication, but those are the things as we. As we took on this topic that we're often asked about, and it's like in most everything, we like to make everything complex, and really it comes down to do some very simple things. Again, listen first, okay, with a loving heart. Understand your spouse's language, okay, on how they communicate and how they receive communication. Most effectively, and then finally, picking your battle, so to speak. Does it really matter? Do you really need to bring this up or have this conversation on this?
Right.
Does it really matter?
It doesn't.
And we have found in our years here, and we have some miles on us. Okay, we've been around the block a time or two. Okay, we've had a few passionate discussions.
Well, and that's what we're going to talk about in the after show. For our members, we're going to head over there. We've got bonus content for Couplepreneur Club members, and we're going to break over to that. I think one of the things we're going to talk about is what are some of the things in the beginning as far as effective communication style, right? How effectively in just the manner of your voice, right? So we're going to be chatting a little bit about that and some of the mistakes that Richard made.
There we go. Okay, which they were. Yes, I'll own that.
You will.
Okay.
Well, I'm sure we can probably find a thing or two that I may have done not so great.
Maybe a thing or two, but I'll let you bring those up.
Okay, that's a good idea.
See, I found that's effective in our communication, to let her bring her things up and then tell me about mine. That seems to be work out really well.
Right. So we're going to share that in the after show area. So I think we're calling it the after party. So we'll be doing that in the bonus content. But in the meantime, guys, again, go out and get the 5 love languages. We don't get a dime for that. Just go get it. You'll thank us for it, and learn. Not only learn, but then implement. Practice implementing each other's love languages, whatever it is. Even if it's your last one, you really do need to practice and intentionally do it. And here's the thing: even if your spouse doesn't do it, even if you guys read the book, you take the quiz, you figure out what your love languages are, and one of you is like, I am committed to this. I am going to make sure that I speak my spouse's love language. I'm in. Yeah. And the other one does not. Doesn't matter. Right. You're responsible for you. And I guarantee you that if you continually, with love, speak your spouse's love language, sooner or later, they'll come around.
Preach it, baby. That's right.
There we go.
There we go. All right. Hey, we'll see you club members over in the after party. And for you others here, hey, it was good having you here. But before we let you go, we want to remind you that you were purposefully and wonderfully created. And you were created to do and achieve great things together.
Bye, everybody.